Welcome to 21st Sports recap and reaction for Game 1 of the NLDS between the New York Mets and the Los Angeles Dodgers, played October 9th, 2015. And on the mound for LA, Clayton Kershaw, and on the mound for New York, Jacob deGrom. So we're going to go over every at-bat and the stats. We're going to give our breakdown and analysis. So starting off in the top of the first, Kershaw on the mound for LA. Granderson lined out to lead off the game. David Wright then drew a walk, and then Kershaw struck out the next two batters, Cespedes and Murphy. And so that did it for the top of the first. Then in the bottom of the first, deGrom on the mound for New York struck out Crawford, then led up a single to Kendrick. Seager then struck out, and Gonzalez struck out. So 3 strikeouts in the bottom of the first for deGrom, and we were headed to the top of the second. So now Kershaw would get Denard to ground out, and then Duda reached on an infield single, and then Kershaw struck out Gadier and Tejada, and so we headed to the bottom of the second. So now deGrom would let up a leadoff double to Turner, but then he bounced back by striking out Ethier and Ellis. He intentionally walked Peterson and then struck out Kershaw. So after 2 innings, deGrom had 6 strikeouts, as this was one heck of a pitching duel. So now in the top of the third, Kershaw would get deGrom to ground out, and then Granderson got a single, but Kershaw would strike out Wright and Cespedes. So that's the strikeouts here in this game between these two aces. So now in the bottom of the third, deGrom would record his first out not via strikeout, as he would get Crawford to pop out and then Kendrick to ground out. Seager then hit a ground rule double, and then deGrom got his 7th strikeout of the game against Gonzalez. So now at the top of the fourth, Clayton Kershaw led up a leadoff home run to Daniel Murphy. He hit it 407 feet, and it was now 1-0 New York over LA. So that was the first run on the scoreboard. Kershaw would then bounce back by striking out Denard and Duda, and then Gadier flew out. So now we were headed to the bottom of the fourth, but not after the Mets had put a run on the scoreboard. So now in the bottom of the fourth, deGrom would let up a leadoff single to Turner. He then struck out Ethier. Ellis then got a single, so now he had 2 on, 1 out. Peterson then flew out, and Kershaw flew out, and we were headed to the fifth. So now Kershaw would strike out Tejada and deGrom, and then Granderson got a single, but then Kershaw struck out Wright. So now in the bottom of the fifth, deGrom would set down the Dodgers in order, striking out Crawford. Kendrick grounded out, and then striking out Seager. So now on to the sixth, Kershaw would get Cespedes to fly out, Murphy flew out, and then Denard grounded out, as Kershaw would set the Mets down in order in the top half of the sixth. deGrom would then set the Dodgers down in order in the bottom half of the sixth, striking out Gonzalez, getting Turner to fly out, and then Ethier popped out. So now in the 7th inning, Kershaw let up a leadoff walk to Duda. Gadier then grounded out, moving Duda to second. Tejada then walked, and deGrom sacrificed as he allowed Duda to move to third and Tejada to second. Granderson then walked, and the bases were juiced for David Wright, and Kershaw was done for the night, as Baez would come in to face Wright, and David Wright hit a single up the middle, just out of the reach of the second baseman, and Duda and Tejada both scored as Granderson took third. There was now runners on the corners with the score 3-0 New York over LA. Cespedes then struck out, stranding 2, one runner 90 feet away, but not after the Mets had put 2 insurance runs on the scoreboard in this pitching duel as we headed to the 7th inning stretch. So now in the bottom of the 7th, deGrom still on the mound for the Mets. Cespedes in left, Lagares in center. Ellis would fly out, Peterson struck out, and then Chase Utley would come in to pinch hit for Baez, and he struck out as well. So that would do it for the 7th. Now the top of the 8th, Peralta on the mound for the Dodgers, and he would set down the Mets in order as he got Murphy to line out, Denard flied out, and then Duda struck out. So now in the bottom of the 8th, Tyler Clippard now on the mound for New York as he would relieve deGrom, as deGrom had an amazing night, 13 strikeouts in 7 innings. So Clippard on the mound, and he ended up getting Crawford to line out. Then he let off a double to Kendrick. Seager popped out, and then Gonzalez dropped one into left field that scored Kendrick as the Dodgers scored their first run of the evening in the bottom of the 8th off of the reliever Clippard. So it was 3-1. New York still in the lead by 2. Murphy would then come in at first, and Familia would come in to relieve Clippard. Johnson in at second, and then Turner lined out, and that brought the bottom of the 8th to a close, but not after the Dodgers had put a run on the scoreboard. So a 2-run game heading into the 9th. Chris Hasher on the mound for the Dodgers set down the Mets in order, getting Lagares to ground out, Tejada struck out, and Johnson grounded out. So now the bottom of the 9th, the Dodgers just 3 outs away from losing this game, is Jeurys Familia would come on to close this one out and try to finish it off, and he would get Ethier to ground out. Rollins then pinch hit for Ellis, and he grounded out, and then Peterson grounded out to the pitcher, and Familia retired him, and it was over for the Dodgers as the Mets win Game 1 to go up 1-0 in the series, and they won this game 3-1, and they have a 72% chance of going on to win the series, as whoever wins Game 1, 72% of the time, wins the 5-game series. So the Mets steal one on the road against the Dodgers with an amazing pitching performance by deGrom. As I said, 7 innings pitched, 13 strikeouts. That's almost 2 per inning. And he only let up 1 walk and only 5 hits, no earned runs. And Clippard let up the only run for the Mets in the 2/3 of an inning that he pitched, as he let up 2 hits and an earned run. And then Familia came in and pitched the final 4 outs. He actually came in the 8th inning. Correction there. And so he didn't get any strikeouts, but he didn't let up any hits, and he didn't let up any walks, and he got the save. Kershaw gets the loss. He pitched 6 2/3 innings, allowing 3 earned runs off of 4 hits. He also had 4 walks, but he did have 11 strikeouts, as the 2 starters combined for 24 strikeouts in this game. Kershaw did let up that home run to Murphy in the 4th. And Baez pitched 1/3 of an inning, allowing 1 hit. He had 1 strikeout, no earned runs. Peralta pitched an inning, no earned runs, no hits. A relief for the Dodgers. He had a strikeout as well, and Hatcher had a strikeout, allowing no hits and no earned runs. As the Dodgers' relief was good. Of course, Baez let up that single to Wright that scored the 2 RBIs. Of course, those were both accredited to Kershaw. And you can only wonder, what would have happened if they maybe kept Kershaw in there. Of course, it's easy to second guess, because really in that position there's no right decision, because no matter what you do, you can always afterwards look back and be like, oh, well, if they left Kershaw in, maybe he gets out of the jam, but then maybe Wright hits a grand slam. Of course, what difference did it really make? Either way, 2 runs, 4 runs, they still lost by 2 anyway. So they maybe just would have lost by a couple more runs. And then the thing is, if they left Kershaw in, and then Kershaw does let up even 1 run to Wright, then you second guess that and say, oh, why didn't they bring in the reliever? Because it goes both ways. I've seen where they'll leave the pitcher in there, and then he lets up the runs, and it's like, why didn't they bring in the relief? But then they take him out because the bases are juiced, and then the reliever lets in 2 anyway. So they're pretty much in a lose-lose situation with the bases juiced against David Wright, as he usually is going to come through in those situations, as he's pretty clutch. Of course, as I said, Jacob deGrom with a huge performance. He's been one of the best pitchers all year, and he shines here in the postseason. And Kershaw, once again, he 6 solid innings, but then he gets into trouble in the 7th. And of course, last year, the 7th inning was like the disaster inning for the Dodgers. They let up 13 runs in the 7th inning of the series against St. Louis last year. And then here, once again, the 7th inning comes back to haunt them. Is David Wright with that 2 RBI single in the 7th. So let's look at numbers, though, for the batters in this game. Granderson, 2 for 3 for the Mets. He also had a walk. David Wright, the 2 RBIs off his only hit in the game. He also drew a walk as well. He struck out twice. Cespedes struck out 3 times. He was 0 for 4. Murphy 1 for 4, 1 RBI, 1 run scored off of that home run he hit in the 4th. Donato was 0 for 4. Duda 1 for 3 with a run scored. He also walked and struck out twice. Kadire 0 for 3. Tejada 0 for 3, although he did walk once and he did score when he walked. And that was when he got drove in by Wright. And then over for LA, Crawford 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts. Kendrick 2 for 4 and 1 scored. Seager 1 for 4, 2 strikeouts. Gonzalez 1 for 4 with an RBI, but 3 strikeouts. 2 for 4 for Turner. Ethier 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts. Ellis 1 for 3 with a strikeout. Peterson 0 for 3 with a strikeout. And actually, in this game, the only starters for the Dodgers that didn't strike out, Kendrick and Turner were the only starters that didn't strike out for LA. And for the Mets, I believe it was Granderson was the only starter that didn't strike out for New York against Kershaw. Lots of strikeouts. I mean, if you like pitching, this was definitely a game for you, as both of these games for the NLDS were heavy on the pitching, whereas we saw more offense in the ALDS games. But here the Mets jump out to that 1-0 lead, get a big win on the road in this game, as they have the advantage now. Now they have home field advantage, as this series is going to be going back to New York. Well, going to New York. They haven't been there yet in the series, but they'll be going to New York with the chance to finish out the series regardless of what happens in Game 2. So a big win for New York here in Game 1. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great week, and have a great weekend, and enjoy all the sports.